So Sue, she's a business intelligence consultant with Sherlock Resources. She's a certified Microsoft Power BI data analyst associated with, she has an MBA degree. She has over decades of diverse business experience, including over 10 years as a business owner. And her professional journey has taken her through various roles in multiple organizations, including as an analyst of shale oil, all of which enable her to provide valuable insight into the inner workings of business of all sizes. So we're so grateful to you, Sue, to be here and helping our chapter with the presentation and teaching us how BI can help us be more efficient and grow our businesses. So you have the floor.
Thanks, Nikolai. And I do want to give a big thank you to Nikolai and to Charlotte for coordinating this meeting and all of our FANG meetings. They do a lot of work behind the scenes to get these put on, and I really appreciate it. Especially last night, they were working hard last night when the venue fell through to try to get this to be a Zoom meeting, and you all made it here. So thank you for joining us. I appreciate you all being here. So, all right, I'm going to share my screen so I can get to my presentation here. And hopefully you can see this.
So quickly, I forgot before you start, we're gonna have Q&A, after the presentations. But if you guys wanna send some questions, just send it to me in the chat, and then I'm gonna ask the question. So if it's something burning.
Yeah, if you have something really specific to what I'm showing you, like if you missed it and you're like, oh, I need you to show me that again, and do it at the time. But if it's anything that's not directly relevant to what I'm showing, save it for the end, and we'll have time for Q&A at the end. All right, so welcome to Power BI Desktop Basics for Finance. And Nikolai already introduced me, so I don't need to tell you about me. I'm going to tell you about our agenda, what we're going to talk about in this meeting. We're going to answer the questions, what is Power BI and why would you want to use it? And I'm going to show you how to upload data, how to do data transformations and create visuals within Power BI. And I'm going to demonstrate the interactions between the visuals in Power BI. I'll talk about the different AI capabilities, and then some ways you can share the reports that you create in Power BI. So first of all, what is Power BI? It is Microsoft's business intelligence platform. It's similar to Excel. A lot of the functionality is the same, but it's better than Excel. I think of it as the Hulk of software because it's so powerful. And I would say Power BI is a very apt name. They named it well because it's so incredibly powerful. But an even more important question than what is Power BI is what is business intelligence? Business intelligence transforms data into actionable information. It's information your company uses to make important business decisions. And those result in things like higher profits, lower costs, more customers, better customers, all the outcomes that your company wants. Some of the specifics about why you might want to use Power BI are the reporting is automated. You can just click refresh in your report and it'll bring the new data or revised data into your report. It also integrates data from multiple data sources into one report. So you can pull in data from different Excel files or from your financial system and from a different system and combine those and use that data in one report. Also, the reports are interactive. So this is one of the things that sets it aside from Excel because the visuals you create in Excel are static, but the visuals you create in Power BI are dynamic and they're interactive. And I'm going to demonstrate that for you soon. Power BI has AI capabilities, and we're going to talk about those. And one of the great things about it is that Power BI is free. At least, well, I should say Power BI Desktop is free. And everything I'm going to show you how to do today, you can do inside Power BI Desktop, and it's free. There's some paid features There's a paid software that goes like a companion software but it's still quite inexpensive. And I'm going to talk about that toward the end of the presentation. But using Power BI helps your company to create accountability and to be proactive rather than reactive. Of course, the ultimate goal and all the things that we're talking about are to make better business decisions and use those to drive profit, lower costs, get more customers, all the things that I've talked about. But really, any important outcome for your business, if you have better information, you can make better decisions to get those outcomes that your company wants. Then on the other side of the screen is an analysis. Now, I didn't do this. I didn't put this together. This is from Gartner. They're a software review company, and they've rated these different different business intelligence platforms on their ability to execute and their completeness of vision. Now, it's not just this chart. They have an entire analysis, a lot of information that goes along with this. This is just the visual they had with it. But they've analyzed all these software packages, these different platforms. And not only of course, it shows Microsoft on the visual, but that's referring to Power BI, which is Microsoft's platform. So not only did they find Power BI to be rated the best on both of those scales, but you'll also notice is significantly higher than the next competitor, Tableau. Now, some of you may have heard of Tableau, and I would say that that might be a better solution if you work for a very large company with massive quantities of data. That's what Tableau is designed for. And it's also quite expensive. But I would say for most companies, Power BI is an amazing solution. So let's move on. There are many, many different uses for Power BI. We're going to talk about financial analysis today, but you can also do sales analysis, look at inventory, manufacturing. You can create executive dashboards. These are just some examples. There's a lot more you can do with it as well. But of course, today we're focusing on finance. Here's some examples of analyses you might want to use Power BI for. Again, this is not an exhaustive list at all. There's a lot more you could do, but these are just some examples to give you some ideas. Now, the first two may look the same, but financial analysis over time, that's like, say, looking at profit for January, February, March, April. So you're looking at something over time, whereas the time series comparison is comparing, for example, your quarter one results for your current year to your quarter one results of last year. So that would be a time series comparison. You can use it for forecasting. You can look at profit margins, tracking costs, cash flow, valuation. There's lots and lots of different things you might use Power BI for. And this is the report we're going to create today during this presentation. We're going to be looking at profit for a coffee shop company. And so think of it like Starbucks, but very small. This company only has 3 locations, but they sell the same types of things. They sell coffee, they sell tea, hot chocolate, pastries, things like that. Now, there's lots of different data sources that you can connect to in Power BI. The ones I have on the screen are just some examples. There's way too many to put in one slide. So I'm actually going to go into Power BI now so I can show you directly in the system the different data sources it can connect to. So I'm going to stop share of this, and then I'm going to go into Power BI. I'll share. Okay, there we go. So this is just a welcome screen. I'm going to close this box. This is what Power BI looks like when you're working in it. And I'm going to click in the upper left, get data, so I can show you the data connections. So there's Excel and CSV at the top. Those are the most common, but you also have folders, PDF, SharePoint, SQL, IBM, SAP. There's lots of Azure sources, Microsoft Exchange, Dynamics. Google Analytics, Salesforce, website. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Hopefully you can see some of these as I'm scrolling through, but my point is there are lots and lots of different data sources you can connect to. Here's Google Sheets. I'm still scrolling, guys. All right, so this is all the sources they have. If your data source is not listed here, there are a couple things you can do. For most software packages, you can export your data into either Excel or CSV or both. A lot of them you have a choice. So that's what you would do, is you would export your data into, say, a CSV and then connect to that CSV. If you have a choice between Excel or CSV, I would recommend CSV for Power BI purposes, just because it'll load faster, but either one will work just fine. And I want to mention the web. To show you that really quick, I'm going to type web in this box on the upper left and just click web, and then I'm going to click connect. So it's going to pop up with this URL box, and you can just copy and paste a website address right here in this box and then say okay. And then you could connect to a website. Now, some examples of data you might want to pull in from a website for a financial report would be currency exchange rates. So say your values are in US dollars, but you want to say, what would my cost be in Deutsche Marks? Then you could pull in the current currency exchange rate for Deutsche Marks and have information in Deutsche Marks in your report. Or you might want to pull in the federal funds rate or the other kinds of interest rates. So those are just a few examples. So I want to now just go ahead and get some data in here and show you how to do that. So I'm going to click Get Data, and I'm going to bring in a couple CSV. So I'm selecting CSV, and I click Connect, and I'm going to select my customer table first. So I click my table, and then I'm going to click Open. And there's my table. I'm going to click Load. Now it's loading. All right, and I'm going to bring in now my product table. So I'm going to click Get Data, CSV, Connect. I'm clicking on my product table, Open, and Load. And one last thing, now this time I'm going to bring in multiple files at once, and I'm going to do that using a folder. So I'm clicking Folder this time, Connect. And I need to navigate to where the folder is so it knows where to find the data here. Let's see. Okay. Now I click my sales folder and OK. I'll click OK again. Now you can see the 3 files that are in that folder, the January sales data, February, and March. So it's going to bring 3 files all in at once and combine them all at once. So I'm going to click Combine, Combine, and Load. And OK. This is a little faster when I don't have Zoom open. So when you're using this in person, it'll probably go a little faster than this. I think Zoom is slowing it down a little bit. But anyway, my 3 tables now are loaded, and they're showing on the right side of the screen. And all the 3 different sales tables are all combined into one table now. So now I'm ready to do my data transformations because I have all my data loaded. So I'm going to click Transform Data here in the middle. And now this is bringing me into the Power Query Editor within Power BI. Now here I'm going to go to my sales table, and I'm going to scroll over. Remember, we're going to create a report on profit. So I don't have profit here in my table yet. I have quantity sold and unit price. So first I want to calculate my revenue. So to do that, I'm going to add a column for revenue. So I'm going to click add column, custom column, and I'm going to call this revenue. The equal sign is already here. So revenue equals quantity sold, insert, times unit price, insert. Okay. There's my revenue. Now I want to calculate profit, but first I have to know my cost, and I do not have costs here in the sales table. But here in my product table, I have cost in here somewhere. Here, current cost for each product. So I'm going to bring this cost column.
Can you guys see the screen? Because I don't see anything moving. Is it frozen?
You don't? Oh, hold on. Oh my goodness.
No, I wasn't seeing any of the actions you just did. I thought maybe it's my screen, but
Yeah,
no,
maybe.
it's still sharing. Here, let me stop share and then try again, because I think that's the one problem with Zoom is it doesn't share whatever's on your screen. It shares each thing individually. So I think when I switched into the Power Query editor, it stopped sharing. So let's try. All right.
Okay, we can see it now.
Do you see this now?
Yeah, we see it now.
Okay, thanks for letting me know. So this is the Power Query editor, and I'm in my sales table, and I'm going to scroll over to show you this again. Here, I'm going to delete what I just added so I can do this over. So you'll see how to do it. So, okay, here in my sales table, I have quantity sold and unit price, and I'm going to calculate revenue from that. So I'm going to click the add column. Here, I'll go back. When I first came in, I was here in the home tab. I'm going to click add column and then custom column. And you're seeing this okay now? Do you see where it says custom column? Okay, so I'm going to call this revenue. And the equal sign is here in the formula already. And then it equals quantity sold, insert, times unit price, insert. And then okay. So there's my revenue column. And there's no cost in here, but I'm going to click my product table and scroll through here, and I have costs, current costs right here, and that's the cost per product. I'm going to bring that column into my sales table. I'm going to merge it in. So here in the merge, let me go back to home. Okay, I'm going to click merge queries here in the upper right. And I need to tell it which table to merge in, my product table. And I'm going to show it how to relate. It needs to know how to relate the two tables. And that would be with the product ID. So I just select the product ID column for each table and say, okay. So now it knows how to relate them. And I'm going to click this expand icon. And I could bring in this entire table. So if I wanted to do that, I would just leave all columns selected. But in this case, I just want cost. So I'm going to deselect all. I'm going to check current cost and say, okay. So there is my cost. And this is just the cost per item. So I need to calculate the total cost because some of these transactions sold more than one unit. So again, I'm going to go to add column, custom column. And we're going to call this total cost. So the total cost equals current cost. Now I'm not seeing the cost. Oh, here we go. Cost times quantity sold. So there's my total cost. And now I can calculate the profit. So again, I'm going to click custom column. We're going to call this profit. And that equals revenue minus total cost. Insert. Okay. And there's my profit. Now there's one last thing I need to do here. it has identified these columns as just text fields, and we want it to be a number. So I'm going to select the 3 columns I created, right click, and select change types to decimal number. So now they're numbers. And then there's one last transformation I want to do here. I have transaction date, but I want to have month name in here also, because the first visual I'm going to make is a profit by month. So I'm going to start with this transaction date and do this one a little differently. This time I'm going to pick column from examples. I'm going to double click this first cell and type FEB. Now I'm typing that because the transaction date is in February. So I'm matching, and it already pops up with February. I'm just going to double click that and hit OK. And it filled it in for me. I'm going to just make sure it did what I wanted. I'm going to click this down arrow and load more. So it filled in all 3 months, and those are the 3 months of data that are in my file. And they're all in here. So it did exactly what I wanted. And it even named the column for me. So this is perfect. This is one of my favorite things I can do in Power BI, using column from examples, because it makes it really easy to add some of the columns that you want. Now, there's a lot more that you could do here. There's many, many different data transformations you can do here in Power BI. You can do almost anything you can do in Excel. The one exception is you can't edit an individual cell. You can, however, add a table and edit individual cells in that specific table. And I'll show you that really quick. I'm going to click Home, enter data. And so it brings up a table that you can make, and you can put anything you want in this table, and you could make your own cells if you wanted. I'm not going to do this because I don't need it for what we're doing today, but I wanted to make sure you are aware you could do this. So I'm just going to click cancel for now, but if you entered into a table, you would click OK, and it would add that table to your model. So now I've done all the data transformations I want. I'm going to click close and apply at the upper left. All right, and my screen sharing stopped. So let me share my screen again and go back. So where was I here? Let's see. Yes, here we go. Share. Okay. All right. So now we're back in Power BI, and you can see the 3 different files or tables are on the right. And I need to move. Yeah, here we go. So I'm going to open or expand each of my tables because I want to see the different fields. Now these are called either fields or column. These are the columns in the table. So either is the same thing, whether you call these columns or fields, it means the same thing. So the first visual that I want to create is profit by month. So I'm going to check the box for profit, and I'm going to check month name. And then it added my 3 months of data. And now I'm going to create a visual also for profit, but I want to look at profit by product category. So I just checked the box for profit and for product category. And actually I want to switch the order of those. There we go. And I also want to do a visual of profit. So I check profit by store. So I checked profit and I checked store. And I'm going to move this visual to the right. And I just realized I'm going to close this filter pane so that it makes it a little bigger, and then it'll be a little easier for you to see, I think. All right, so my profit by store, and I'm going to add a card visual specifically. So this time I'm going to select card from my visualizations pane, and I want that to be total profit. So I'm just going to check the box for profit, and that's my total profit. So that's combined January, February, and March data. And then I also want to show you the Q&A visual. So this time I'm going to just select the Q&A visual. This is really cool. It uses AI. You can ask it questions in normal human language, and it creates a visual to address your question. So it takes a minute to load because it's coming up with these suggestions. but I'm not going to use its suggestions. I'm going to ask it, what is the average profit per transaction? And I hit enter, and now it's thinking. And I'm going to click this icon to convert it to a standard visual. And then I want to make this a card visual. So there's my average profit per transaction.
Cool.
All right. And then I'm going to do one more Q&A. So let me do Q&A. So I click on Q&A, and this time I'm going to ask it, customer with the highest profit. And I misspelled with, so fix that. Okay, and then I hit, oh, I can just try again with all right, let's see. All right, so now that's a standard visual, and I'm going to just resize it here. Sorry, bear with me. I keep having to move this Zoom box around because it keeps being at where I need to click on things. So I'm having to navigate around it. So sorry for that. All right, so I've shown you there are two different ways to create the visual. You can just click on the fields you want to be in it, and it will use AI and just select what it thinks is the best type of visual for what you selected. Or you can click on the visual that you want, the specific kind you want, and then check the fields, and it will create that specific visual with the fields that you want in it. So you're not limited to what it selected. So here, it chose a column chart, but I could say, what does this look like as a line chart? So I click line chart, or I could see an area chart or a scatter graph. Now, scatter graph makes no sense. It looks stupid, so obviously I wouldn't leave it on that. You can make anything a table. In this case, I actually think I like the column chart the best, so I'm going to put it back to a column chart. Here in the product visual, I'm going to make this a tree map, and then maybe expand this a little bit out. So that's what it looks like as a tree map. And I want my store visual to be a pie chart. So I'm going to click on pie chart, and I'm going to expand this one too to make it bigger. So there's my pie chart, and I'll move these a little bit. All right, so there we go. Now, I would do a lot of formatting here. I'm going to just show you a few examples of formatting because our time's limited, but you'll get the general idea. So I'm selecting my first visual, and the format tab is here in the middle. So this is where we are now. I'm going to click, the format icon is the one with the paintbrush on it. So I click the paintbrush, and I'm going to change my columns to be a different color. So we'll make these columns pink. There we go. And I'm going to add data labels to my columns. So I'm going to just click the data labels to on, and I'm going to make those bigger because they're hard to read. So let me go down, and I'm going to make these a bigger font and bold, and we'll change the color of the font to purple. So those are my data labels, and I'm also going to change my colors on my pie chart. We'll make those pink to match. I'm going to leave the blue, and we'll make this one purple. There we go. So you get an idea how to do the formatting, but there's a lot more you can do. You can change all the titles. You can change all the font. You can remove titles. There's a title not only for the visual itself, but there's one on the x-axis, on the y-axis, and you can change all those things. You can also add a background color. You can add borders to the visuals. You can add a title, like using a text box. You can add a title to the page. So there's a lot of different formatting you could do here. And normally I would do, but we're limited for time. So I want to move on. But now you've created your entire report. What happens when you get new data? So I'm going to show you that. First, I have to get my data here. So give me a minute to all right. I have way too many windows open because of the Zoom. I'm totally sorry about this. I was not prepared for the Zoom. This is supposed to be in person. So give me a minute here to get my data. And you're not seeing this. This is okay. All I'm going to do is drag and drop my April data into the sales folder. So you're not really missing anything here. All right. So now my April data is in my sales folder, and I'm going to go back to my report. All right. Are you seeing the? Yeah. Okay. So you're still seeing the report.
Yep.
All right. So now I need to close this window. Okay. So now my April data is available. I just click refresh here in the middle, and it's pulling in the new data. And again, this normally goes faster if I don't have Zoom open. But now you see this is adjusted and it's added the April data. And of course, the total profit is different because it's added those numbers in. So that's how easy it is to add new data or when something changes. All right. Now I want to show you the interactions between the visuals. So here, if I select January, all the other visuals filter to show me the values for January. Or I could look at T. So I just click on T, and now they all filter to show me the values for T. I could also look at an individual store. So here's the data for store 3. And another interaction is the tooltips. If I hover over any of these, it pops up with the value. So here I can see the profit for coffee is 113,000, or I could see for January, the profit's 105, and I can see the numbers for a store. So this all pops up. I want to show you another report to show you some more of the interactions. So I'm going to stop sharing this so I can move to the other report. This is a budget report. And this one's fully formatted. So you can see here what it looks like, with an added background color and with the titles formatted and things like this. So this is what it would typically look like once you do all your formatting. And this report, I've also added this year filter at the top. This is also called a slicer. And right now, the data, this is showing data for all 6 years combined, all 6 years of data that are in this report. But I can click on each of these years and it will filter to show me the data just for that year. Or I can click off and now I see the data for all the years combined again. And also I can select in here like I showed you in the other report. So I've selected personnel services. And now when I hover over, say, Houston Police Department, when the tooltips pop up, they don't just show me the expenses for the Houston Police Department, but they also show me the expenses for personnel services within the Houston Police Department because I have the personnel services selected as the category. So I can see both. All right, so I'll deselect that. So now it's just showing me the total amount in the tooltips. And I'm going to move to the next page of this report because I want to show you this line chart. And here when I hover, it'll bring up a tooltip for any point on this line. And this one also has this zoom slider. So if I want to zoom in on a specific time frame, I can do that from either side here. And if I want to see this even closer, I can click this icon for focus mode at the top. And now I can see it really up close. The tooltips still pop up. And the zoom slider works here as well. And now I'm just going to go back to my report. And I want to show you this forecast. So this is an AI generated forecast. And when I hover over it, not only do you see the forecasted amount, but you can see the upper and lower bounds of the forecast. These are based on a 95% confidence interval, but you can adjust the confidence interval. You don't have to leave it at the default if you want it to be something different. And I want to show you how to generate a trend line. So the analytics is this third icon here. It's the third one out of these 3 icons. And I'm just going to click that on, and it's added my trend line. I'm going to go back into focus mode on this one so you can see it's the black dotted line is the trend line, and that's AI generated. And then the light blue dotted line is an average line that I already added earlier. And then I'm going to click back to report. So that's the trend line. One last thing I want to show you while I'm in Power BI is how to export to PDF. So I'm going to click File, Export, Export to PDF. And it's generating the report. And let me see if you can see this. Okay. I think it's still showing you Power BI. So let me stop that and share screen. And so, okay, maybe it is showing it. So hopefully you're seeing this PDF, and I'm going to scroll through here.
Yeah, we see it.
Okay, so this is what the PDF report looks like when it exports. But you have to keep in mind, this is not interactive. Now that it's a PDF, it's just a flat file. When I hover here, the tooltips don't pop up. You can't click on anything. It's just a flat file. But if you wanted, you could send this to someone. For some purposes, this works really well, and you could email this to people easily. So I'm going to stop share of this, and I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint presentation. I've covered a lot of this already. Hold on, I accidentally went through. All right, we were on data sources. All right, and I think you're seeing this now. So we covered the data sources, and I showed you how to upload data and how to combine files. So you can combine files either using merge or by connecting to a folder. And there's a third thing too. You can append files depending on how you want to combine them, but that works just like merge. I showed you how to do data transformations, but again, there's a lot more data transformations you can do. There's much, much more than just what I showed you. I showed you how to create visuals and the interactions between the visuals. And I showed you an AI generated forecast. I do want to make sure you're aware that you have to have at least 2 years worth of data in order to do a forecast. And that's because Power BI is taking into account any cyclical trends. So it needs the 2 years worth of data in order to identify the cyclical trends. So for AI capabilities, I showed you a trend line. It can also identify outliers. You can do a what if analysis in Power BI. There's a decomposition tree visual. There's a key influencers visual. I showed you the Q&A visual, which is really cool, where you can ask it questions in normal human language, and it'll create a visual to address that. You can also do anomaly detection, and it will use AI to generate insights into your data. Now that requires a paid account with Power BI service if you want to get the AI generated insights. And I'm going to talk about the accounts, the paid accounts on the next screen. So now we come to sharing. If you're creating these reports for your own use, you're going to analyze these yourself and use them, then you're good to go. You have everything you need to make those reports. But if you want to be able to share these reports with other people, either colleagues or with clients, it can get a little tricky because, for example, I'm connecting, when I made this example report for you, I'm connecting to files that are saved on my computer, Excel or CSV files on my computer. So if I email that to someone, they're not going to be able to connect to those files from their computer. They can, if they have Power BI, they will be able to open the file and use it. It'll be interactive. They'll be able to see the tooltips. All that will work. but they will not be able to refresh it and pull in new data because it would be trying to pull it from my computer, which they wouldn't have access to. So some companies they use SharePoint. So you could connect to files that are in SharePoint rather than on your own computer. And that way, when you send it to colleagues, as long as they have access to the SharePoint, they would be able to use it. Most companies use Power BI Service when they're sharing reports. That's a companion software to Power BI, but it does require a paid license. There's a pro license for $10 a month per user, or a premium license for $20 a month per person. So it's still very reasonably priced. And the premium, really quick, the main difference with premium is you can do things like text sentiment analysis, text analysis, and image tagging. The more advanced AI features that Power BI has, you need the premium license for those. But if you're not doing text analysis, for most things, a pro license is fine. But anyway, $10 a month per user, it's very reasonable. So still way cheaper than Tableau and, I'm probably all the other competitors. If you do get a service account, you can share and collaborate in Microsoft Teams. It's integrated with this since Power BI is obviously a Microsoft product. So it's integrated with the other Microsoft things like Microsoft Teams. So a lot of companies do their collaboration and sharing reports within Teams. You can also publish to the web if you have service. And now for financial information, I don't recommend that. You have to be really careful what data you're publishing to the web. You want to make sure you don't accidentally publish anything confidential. But there is some financial information you could do. For example, you could make a report that has stock prices and dividends. And then you could share that on the web. You could publish that on the web. So there may be some uses where that would be beneficial for you. And then you can export these Power BI reports into a PowerPoint. So if you wanted to present to executives at your company within a PowerPoint, and then you can have your slides and your PowerPoint together within that presentation. And then the last one is export to PDF, and that's free. That's within Power BI Desktop. And I showed you how to do that. That's a really easy way to email this to someone and have them be able to look at the report. Just remember, like I said, it's not interactive. Okay, so what I've shown you today is just the tip of the iceberg of Power BI. There are many, many more capabilities that we don't have time to cover. But you can create calculated columns, calculated tables, you can add measures, and those are a little complicated. They're programmed in DAX. DAX is the programming language in Power BI. And then within the Power Query Editor, that uses M code for programming. But there's a lot more you can do in Power BI. And then in addition to what it can already do, Microsoft adds functionality to it every month. They have forums where they ask the users what functionality they would like to see and what's not working the way they would like it to. And then the things that get requested the most, they try to add in. So every month they release an update with the most requested functionality. All right, so I would love it if you connected with me. You're welcome to send me a connection request on LinkedIn. I have about 30,000 connections, and I think most of you who are FANG members already recognize the value of having a great network, how valuable that is for you and your company. And then I would also love it if you followed my company, Sherlock Resources, on LinkedIn. I post news articles there. Some of them are general business articles. Some of them are specific to the Houston industry, like what's going on in the economy in Houston. And then I post some technology news. And it's not at the IT level, it's a general business level. Like, for example, I recently posted that Google is getting ready to release a competitor to ChatGPT. It's called Gemini AI. So I posted an article about that. So that's the kind of things that I share on the company LinkedIn page, Sherlock Resources. And then there's my contact information there. So now we're ready for questions. That's the presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen there. And what's the best way to handle Q&A? Should I just click the Q&A button, or Nikolay, are you seeing questions or?
I didn't see any, but please, guys, thank you. This was awesome. You opened my eyes today for sure.
Oh,
I'm a little bit behind. I'm sure some people in here are probably already using it, but anyway, anyone has any questions? Let's see. Well, I'll start with the first question. Or Dirk, you have a question?
Yes, no, I used Power BI in a previous company. We don't have it right now, but I would be interested on the sales side, how I can pull data down on the sales side, not really kind of more, can you gear Power BI to create reports to make sure we follow up with the right people and we keep the top prospects at the top of that list? Is that something that it can do, or is it more geared around really looking at the past data and revenues and financials?
Not at all. It works really well for sales information as well. It's really whatever data you load. I mean, you have to have the data already, but you can load it. So you could look, there's a top end filter on there. So if you had a spreadsheet of your customers, you could do a top end filter. And that means either looking at your top 10 or top 5, you tell it what N is. So you could look at your top 5 customers, your top 10 or prospects, your top 10 prospects, your top 5 prospects, that kind of thing. And you can, I mean, you'd have to know what you consider a top prospect. Like, how are you deciding whether someone's a top prospect or not, right? But once you have that identified, then you can certainly run reports on that. And you could have, like, if you had a spreadsheet with each prospect and the date you last talked to them, then you could, run a report with, like, who haven't I talked to in the last 3 months, or who has it been the longest since I talked to them. There's all sorts of things like that you could do. And one of the connections is Salesforce too. So you can even pull in data from Salesforce if you use something like that. But there are a lot of different things you can do for sales. I was just doing finance today because this is for FANG, the Financial Executives Networking Group. But there you can build lots of things for sales. It's in a way, I would say it's even more beneficial for sales because that's a proactive thing. You can look at, finances at the end. I mean, it's what's already happened. Whereas sales, you can affect that. You can make a change and you can improve things for the future, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does. Thank you.
Sure.
So I have a question. I know that the pro version of ChatGTP can kind of, it's like a spider. So you attach it to a folder and get smart on it. And I saw that I just realized Power BI technically does the same thing. So if, let's say I have, I don't know, 100 PDF files, me as a banker, I get tax returns, company generated financials. So can Power BI get attached to the folder and pull the data from a PDF file, or it doesn't have to be CSV file? Because most of the files I have are PDFs.
Yeah, it can definitely attach to a PDF. And I think if you put those PDFs in a folder and link to that would work. It would combine them. But the format has to be the same. Like, they'd all have to be tax documents that look the same, that have the same columns. If you put a bunch of PDFs that are different with different columns, that's not going to work. The file, when you're combining using a folder, all the columns have to be the same.
So isn't the PDF considered an image in a way? So does it scan images? Because technically it's not a Word. I guess, how does it work? Yeah.
Well, they look to us like a picture, but there's actually tables embedded in them. Now, it depends on what your PDF is made out of, but if there's a table embedded with it or something it can identify as like a table, it will work from a PDF. If it really is just an image, then you're probably not going to be able to do much with it. But what'll happen is when you connect to the PDF, it'll come up and it'll show you this like a preview, and you can see the different columns, and you can tell it, like, it might identify multiple tables within that PDF, and then you click on it and you tell it which table out of that you wanted to bring in.
Got it. All right. Well, we're gonna talk offline. I think you can help me a lot with my underwriting process
I'd be happy to.
to visualize it, because right now it's very boring, and sometimes visualize when I present to credit committee, it could help me a lot to visualize it more.
Absolutely. There's a
Yeah.
lot of things you don't notice if you're just looking at a table of data like in Excel. There's trends and things that you don't notice, but when you see it visualized, then all of a sudden there's things you notice. Like, for example, one of my clients, one of the things, one of the visuals we had included cost of goods sold, and he was looking at it and he's like, why is cost of goods sold fairly consistent? Why is it not moving with sales? Because normally your cost goes up when your sales go up, if it's, you know, specifically cost of goods sold. And he was like, you know, I didn't even realize this. He said, I didn't see it until I saw it. Even though he's been looking at this in a spreadsheet for months or years, he never noticed it until he saw it in the visual. So there's things like that, that the visual, you notice things in that you wouldn't notice in a table.